Anilo Brema Dhana Karuna Prabhu Eno Prabhu Kotagela Acharya Thakur Kamo Swarup Rupa Kahasanathan Kahadasaradhunata Patita Bhavan Artha Juga Kaha Kabiraj Eka Kale Kota Gila Goranatharaj Pashani Kutivo Mata Anali Pashivo Gele Pabo Saba Sange Sange Je Koilo Bilas Sangana Bayakande Narottamadas Anilo Premadana Karuna Pracho Acharya Thakur So I forgot to read the translation, so I'll read that now. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who is filled with the compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Advaita Acharya gone? Where am I Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are Ma Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Guranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Guranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Guranga, accompanied by all these devotees in whose association performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So today is Srivastakar's disappearance day. So first I'll sit a Mangala Charanam, and then I'll start speaking on him. Could you give me please the second canto up there? Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Svapatandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamulam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivashakan Vitamshcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatapati Gopisha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchara Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Pri Vanchakapatu Abhisha Vipasana Viyaja Viditana Pavne Vyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Patali Shrimati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Itanamane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Patali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Itanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pisharne Nirvishesha Shmunavari Pashtatya Deshitarne Puter Mahadviri Mafboro Vibor Nirmaya Shiti Amusha Purushaha Bhunkti Gunan Shodasha Shodashatmakaha Sonang Krishishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me. So I'm sorry, I think it's 38 I'll speak on. I think I'm like totally 39. So briefly, today is the disappearance day of Srivas Thakur. And so he's a very important member of the Pancha Tattva. He's a dear associate of Lord Chaitanya, the incarnation, the Supreme Personality of God himself. I formerly gave a class on his appearance day a few months ago, so I'll just keep it brief since I covered many of his topics. So he was primarily, his dealings with Lord Chaitanya were during his youth, particularly mainly in youth when he was in Navadvip. And he would, famously, Kirtan would be held daily at the house of Srivas Thakur, Srivasangam. Every night the devotees would have Kirtan on end. And there was one, I narrated last time, but I'll narrate in brief. There was one incident where Lord Chaitanya, could I get that? Or are you broadcasting? Okay. You can keep it. You can go on with it. There was one incident where Lord Chaitanya, all the devotees were absorbed in Kirtan in Srivas Thakur's house, and Srivas Thakur's son suddenly passed away as the Kirtan was going on. And Srivas Thakur's wife, Malini, I believe, she, obviously the son was with her, and so she was grief-stricken. And then she informed Srivas Thakur, and Srivas Thakur, he specifically withheld the information. He restrained his emotions, not exhibiting any sort of grief or lamentation, as to not disrupt the mood of Lord Chaitanya, as to not put his own burden on him, so to say. And then Lord Chaitanya, he could understand from the mood of it's just when something's, just like in normal life when something's off, Lord Chaitanya, he's also, I mean, he's omniscient, but he could understand that something's amiss, something's wrong. And so he stopped the kirtan and he asked Srivas Thakur what had happened, if something had happened. And then Srivas Thakur, he informed him that his son passed away and like that. But so we can see the great, the caliber of a devotee who was Srivas Thakur. He was the incarnation of Narada Muni himself. And I believe his brother was, who's that? Parashara Muni, if I'm not mistaken. So this is him in brief. He's a very important member of the Panchatattva. He's an incarnation. Lord Chaitanya himself is the pure, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srivas Thakur, it said that he's representation, or he's the potency of marginal potency, but also he's representative of the pure devotee of the Lord, who's always associated with Lord Chaitanya. So that's Srivas Thakur in brief. So now let's speak on Bhagavatam, text, Canto 2, Chapter 5, text number 38, word for word. Bhorlokaha kalpitaha padbhyam bhuvarloko sya nabhitaha Hrida Svarloka Urasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha Burloka Kalpitaf Padbhyam Bhavarloko Syanabhitaha Hridasvarloka Urasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha Bhurloka Kalpita Padbhyam Bhuvarloko Syanabhitaha Hridasvarloko Urasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha Bhurloko Kalpita Padbhyam Bhuvarloko Syanabhitaha Hridasvaloko Rasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha. Please repeat. Mataji's. Hridasvaloko Rasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha Bhuhu. The lower planetary systems up to the stratum of the earth. Lokaha, the planets. Kalpitaha, it is so imagined or said. Padbhyam, out of the legs. Bhuvaha, Loka, the upper. Lokaha, the planetary system. Asya, of him the Lord. Nabhitaha, from the navel and the abdomen. Hrida, by the heart. Svarlokaha, the planetary systems occupied by the demigods. Urasa, by the chest. Maharlokaha, the planetary systems occupied by the great sages and saints. Mahatmanaha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The lower planetary systems, up to the limit of the earthly stratum, are said to be situated on the legs of the Lord's universal form. The middle planetary systems, beginning from Bhuvarloka, are situated on his navel. And the still higher planetary systems, occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages or saints, are situated on the chest of the Lord. Purport. There are 14 spheres of planetary systems within this universe. The lower systems are called Bhurloka. The middle systems are called Bhuvarloka, and the higher planetary systems up to Brahmaloka, the highest planetary system of the universe, are called Svarloka. And all of them are situated on the body of the Lord. In other words, no one within this universe is without a relationship with the Lord. So I've already said the Mangala Chartam, so I'll just speak directly. Can I get some more water? I'm sorry, my voice is still sore. So so this is Brahma speaking. For those of us who have forgot, I had to look myself. At the beginning of this chapter, Brahma, he's speaking in reply to Narada Muni, his son, and essentially he's describing the creation in technicality. And so here he's talking about Bhur, Bhava, and Swa, the different planetary systems, the lower planetary systems, the middle planet or earthly planetary systems, and Swargaloka or Swarloka, the upper planetary systems where the demigods reside. So we're situated on Bhurloka. And all of this is being scientifically described to Narada by Brahma to Narada Muni in great detail. But all of this knowledge originally comes, and we remember at the beginning of the chapter, that this knowledge is actually coming from Brahma himself. Brahma was originally enlightened by Krishna within the heart. He was given the Prachodita. He was inspired. Prachodita yena parasarasvati vitanvata jasya satim smritim hridi svadakshana paradurabhut kilasita same rishinam rishabaf prasidatam. So this Savita refers to Krishna himself, actually, in one sense. He's the Lord of intelligence. And this Lord of intelligence, Krishna, he inspired Brahma within the heart with his divine knowledge. And this is confirmed in so many places in the Bhagavatam. For the very first verse, it is he who imparted his divine knowledge unto Lord Brahma in the beginning. And there's so many other verses in the Bhagavatam. If I have some cited here, but I'll skip over it because it's technicalities. So as well as in the Upanishads, the same thing is confirmed. But the point is that in the beginning of the universe, Brahma, he was there, and at the beginning he was there, and he was existing, but he had no potency to do anything. He couldn't see, he couldn't trace out the source of his existence, even though he tried, until he surrendered unto Krishna, and until he took shelter of Krishna. Then at that point he was given the impetus, the power to create, and the intelligence to create. He was specifically given this Prachodayat Prachodita. He was given inspiration within the heart. And when that inspiration was there, then Brahma was able to discover the source of his own existence, the source where he came from, the source of the universe. So in this way, he was able to access knowledge. So any sort of discovery, scientific discovery, divine or material, can't take place independently. There has to be a transfer of knowledge, and there has to be, in the ultimate sense, it actually comes from Krishna himself, but we'll get into that. This scientific discovery, it takes place not by chance, but due to inspiration within the heart, actually. And we see that even for those who argue against, even the brain, which makes such discoveries, even that brain is created by something else. So all of this is, in other words, it's not an automatic process. It just doesn't go on by itself like a machine or automaton. There's a source, and there's a conscious source behind what's going on. And specifically, this phenomenon of inspiration, it plays a very important part in the process of acquiring knowledge. Anything Anything can't go on automatically, and specifically, this process of acquiring knowledge and becoming inspired is not an automatic or dual process. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's directly involved. Whether it be Lord Brahma inspiring him with the details of a universal manifestation, imparting unto him the divine Gayatri mantra, and initiating him like this, or even if you take it to mundane science, art, or music. There's so many instances. For example, first, there is one article by Sadaputa Prabhu. He had written on this, on the nature of inspiration and the source of inspiration. So I'll just quote a little bit from there. He writes in this article that if hypotheses in science and systems of reasoning and mathematics are not generated by any systematic procedure, what is their source? And he says that such inspirations generally occur suddenly and unexpectedly to persons who had previously made some sort of unsuccessful attempt to solve a problem or unsuccessful conscious effort to come about to reach an answer to a question, basically. They usually occur when one is not consciously thinking about the problem, and they often indicate an entirely new way of looking at it, a way that the investigator had never even considered during his conscious efforts to find a solution to the problem. Generally, inspiration appears as a sudden awareness of the problem's solution, accompanied by the conviction that the solution is correct and final. One perceives the solution in its entirety, though it may be quite long and complicated when fully written out. And there are so many examples of this, as I was mentioning, in modern science and modern arts, in mathematics. There are so many instances of inspiration, even on a material platform, of people becoming inspired and all of a sudden just generating something wonderful, some sort of wonderful answer, even just some wonderful art. Many of us know the German composer Wolfgang Mozart. He's very famous. He will compose his pieces simply by inspiration. He writes in one quote, in one diary he has, he says, "When I feel well and in good humor, or when I'm taking a drive or walking after a good meal, or in the night when I cannot sleep, thoughts crowd into my mind as easily as you could wish. Whence and how do they come? I do not know, and I have nothing to do with it." So it's inspiration. Inspiration, primarily, it's not something that can be forced necessarily. It's something that comes about almost as if causelessly, as a sense. As Sadaputa Prabhu put it, one may be consciously considering and contemplating an issue, but all of a sudden, it's just like this term eureka moment. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there comes some sort of solution to an issue that was previously contemplated. And it's not exactly from one's own brain power, because when one is consciously using one's mind, thinking about the issue, or trying to compose, just like if anybody's ever composed music, oftentimes you may sit there and try to compose the music, but you may just be going about your day and all of a sudden a tune comes into your head. Some nice progression of notes, just seemingly from nowhere. So inspiration has two sort of main qualities, you could say, in that its source, it lies beyond our conscious perception. It's not immediately accessible by the mind, and it can't exactly be forced. If one isn't, both in this sense and also in the general sense that sometimes we hear people saying, "I'm feeling very inspired," or on the contrary, some people are completely uninspired. And you can't give somebody, you can't force inspiration to somebody. You can't even force yourself to be inspired in a sense. To an extent, some things can be there, some mechanical following can be there, but the inspiration, it comes from outside. So this inspiration and also provides information which is unobtainable by any sort of conscious effort. It's often unconscious, coming from nowhere, and is a spontaneous revelation of something previously contemplated. There's so many examples of this, just like most of us know August Kekuli, a German physicist, who discovered the hexane structure of benzene just through a dream. He was thinking about how is this molecule shaped, and then he just had a dream one night, and he envisioned the hexagonal structure of the atom, and from there, that he discovered that's actually how it is. Similarly to James Watson, he discovered the double helix structure of DNA also within a dream, spontaneous inspiration. As well, again, Niels Bohr, he discovered the structure of an atom, of the nucleus of the atom, also revealed within a dream. So even within the realm of science, you'll find that many scientific discoveries, although they're material, still they depend upon inspiration. Even in technology, so many different technological, just like now, we have this very amazing MacBook, and it weighs as light as air. Whereas 20 years ago, or even take it 30, computers were some big bulky thing. So some inspiration was there to change the system, to change how it works, to implement a new design, and this inspiration, it comes from Krishna, whether it be material or spiritual. This inspiration is originally coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Krishna said, even if you take it as a mechanistic argument and you say that this inspiration is just a product of the brain, it's just a material thing, it's a product of the thought process that comes through mechanistic actions of the brain. Still, that doesn't answer the question, or rather, it completely disregards the fact that there is a clear difference between something which is conscious and something which is without consciousness. It doesn't explain what is self-awareness and where it's come from. These sort of mechanistic arguments. So there's a very clear difference, as I was saying, between something with consciousness and something without consciousness. And if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the same thing. Even if you take it as a mechanistic argument, Krishna says the same thing. Ishwar sarva bhutanam hridish arjuna tishtati brahmamayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. So Krishna also says this body is a machine, but he adds this point, that Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridish arjuna tishtati. That this body is a machine and the living entity is situated on a machine driven by the modes of material nature. But there's an important difference between Krishna's version and the version of material science, is that Krishna says the Lord, the Supreme Lord, is situated within the hearts of every living entity. And it's from this Supreme Lord that he gives the intelligence as to how the living entities are acting. Everybody's acting in some capacity. Somebody's working within, somebody may be pushing a forklift around every single day, and some person may be sitting in a laboratory studying very advanced chemical structures, but the source of the intelligence is the same. The source of this intelligence is Krishna himself. He's supplying the intelligence for all living entities. So this intelligence and this inspiration have their original source in Krishna, whether it be Lord Brahma, how to create the universe, or down to the insignificant ant, how to create his little anthill. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So all these things, mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness, all of them are supplied by Krishna, he says in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, I'm situated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So it's by Krishna's, his relationship and his connection with the living entity, that the living entity is able to acquire knowledge. Most of us have experience. We know people. Some people are naturally more knowledgeable than others. We all went, even going to school. There's so many different kids in our grades, but some people fail the test and some people pass the test. Some people would study very hard for tests and still fail them, and some people wouldn't study at all and completely pass them. Why? Because the knowledge, of course, there are material factors, but ultimately that knowledge is coming from Krishna, dependent upon one's guna and karma. One's karma, meaning his sinful and pious activities, and his own nature. Of course, that's on a mundane platform, but it's there. And then remembrance and forgetfulness, all the two sides of the same coin. If Krishna inspires us, we can remember anything we like, but if he doesn't, we can't remember anything at all. So Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, in other words, no one in this universe is without a relationship with the Lord, without a relationship with Krishna. But practically everybody in this world is going on forgetful of his relationship with Krishna. Everybody is thinking in terms of I, me, and mine. People are thinking in terms of I am black, I am white, I am rich, I am old, I am hungry, I am poor, I am this or that. But these are temporary designations which only
keep people apart from one another, and they don't have real bearing on one's actual identity or one's relationship with God. Actually, the real identity is that we're eternal servants of Krishna. If we were born 10,000 years ago, we wouldn't be Christian, we wouldn't be Muslim, we wouldn't be Hindu, we wouldn't be this or that, because these things didn't exist back then. And if we were born in a completely different part of the world, we wouldn't be American, this, that. We may not be rich, we may not be poor, our situation may be changed. But we would still be individuals, and we would still have a relationship with God, a relationship with Krishna. So this relationship is what actually qualifies the living entities is his actual identity. He's an eternal servant of Krishna. But due to forgetfulness, everybody in this world is going on under different designations. They're thinking in terms of I am rich, poor, white, black, yellow, green, blue, etc., like this. And then this way, they forget Krishna. So this forgetfulness is also given by Krishna. The remembrance comes, and the forgetfulness is there because of Krishna's mercy. And I'm sure most of us, we all have experience of the almost mystic phenomenon that is forgetfulness. You can know somebody for years on end, and you can spend every day with them, but all of a sudden you're trying to call them by their name, and you can't. The name doesn't come to the mind. You can't remember it for anything, and you try to force the mind like anything, but the remembrance isn't there. And almost amazingly, if you're around other people and you ask them what's that person's name, if you forget, other people also forget. It's almost as if a group effect. Why? And you can't bring this back by any terms of your own. If you try to force your mind, you sit there, you're trying to contemplate what's that person's name. What was the name of that? This, that. It's very difficult, actually. If Krishna doesn't give the remembrance, then if Krishna is giving forgetfulness and he doesn't give the remembrance, then there's no way to overcome it. My energy is very difficult to overcome. But often we'll experience later in the day when Krishna gives the remembrance, we may be trying to think of something in one part of the day, and then 12 hours later, we won't be thinking of it at all. And then all of a sudden we remember, oh, okay, yeah, his name was Georgia, like that, From nowhere, the inspiration suddenly comes. So at every single moment, Krishna is reciprocating with us. At every single moment, Krishna is driving our lives, either directly or indirectly. The point is that nothing in this world happens by chance. The creation of this world didn't happen by chance. How the mind functions, how the intelligence is going on, none of it is occurring by chance. It's all Krishna's arrangement and reciprocation with the living entity. As Srila Prabhupada, as I repeat here, nobody in this world is without a relationship with Krishna. So for the devotees, they're always in contact with Krishna, and they're always acting on that relationship with Krishna. And this is the process of Krishna consciousness. We're chanting Krishna's names. We're hearing about the pastimes of Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right now, we're talking about creation, and we understand Grahita Shakti Tritya Dehinam, that these his acceptance or his creation, simply put, it's also his pastimes. So hearing about how the world was created, hearing about Krishna's Leela, his dealings with the devotees, chanting his names, honoring Krishna Prasadam, foodstuffs that are offered to Krishna, and then taking as remnants, it's also a form of acting on that relationship with Krishna. An intelligent person, he utilizes every single moment of his time, reviving and enlivening and constantly acting on this relationship with Krishna. Because either way, either in material life or spiritual life, Krishna is there. Krishna is given the intelligence how to act within material life, or he's given the intelligence how to act within spiritual life. Typically, in material life, we're given bad intelligence, and that's our distorted intelligence, and it misleads us into so many different things. It's just like in a previous class I was mentioning that people work hard. They work so hard for such long hours. They wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They go to work at 8 o'clock, and they work. They get off work at something like 5, 6 o'clock, and then they spend another 2 hours in traffic, because their intelligence dictates them to do so. It's a very unintelligent thing to do because you spend your whole day laboring like an ass, but due to a misguided and misdirected intelligence, one foolishly engages in these things, as well as so many other things. People waste their time just like I happened to be looking at the the news app on this phone, and I've seen they have a whole section. Actually, it's the central section in the news now. That a whole section for sports, and all the intelligence is directed to the sports section. And if you open it, you see so many different things. There's so many different people spend. And if you hang out with these people, you see people spend hours and hours and hours on end discussing sports. Not just sports. So many varieties of useless things: sports, games, cinema, even down to scientific discoveries, cultural arts, etc., like this. But none of this has anything to do with who we are as a person. Arts may come and go, sports teams may come and go, and the pleasure we derive from watching some game or playing some game or participating in some sort of art is temporary and ultimately is unfulfilling. It doesn't give us real satisfaction of heart. Just as Vyasadeva, he had previously described so many different things, the Mahabharata and the Vedas, but he wasn't satisfied because he didn't talk about Krishna. So similarly, too, as long as we're engaged in so many different activities which don't have a relationship with Krishna, we won't actually be satisfied at heart. But if we're fully engaged, we're overwhelmed with those activities which are Krishna conscious, which direct our intelligence towards Krishna, then no matter what state of life one is in, there's no cause for lamentation. There's no cause for lamentation, and it's susukam kartamavyam. The process of Krishna consciousness is very joyfully performed. One is constantly satisfied wherever he's at. So in this way, Krishna reciprocates with every living entity, depending where they're at. He says elsewhere in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Ye tamam prapadyate tam stataiva bhajamyaham, that according to how we approach Krishna, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. So if we're for those who are completely forgetful of Krishna, just absorbed in material life, working like anything, then Krishna also reciprocates with them. He reciprocates in the sense that he gives them intelligence how to work. He gives them intelligence how to enjoy their senses or try to enjoy their senses. And if he's merciful, he gives them the intelligence that actually none of this will actually make you happy. To those who Krishna bestows his mercy upon, he gives them the intelligence how to come to him, he says. Just like elsewhere, he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti porvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. So Krishna gives the intelligence and the inspiration to a devotee how to become Krishna consciousness, how to become Krishna conscious, and how to ultimately return to him. And Krishna, specifically this point, bhajatam priti porvakam, that it's done with love. If you study the Bhagavad Gita, so many times Krishna says this to those who are devoted to serving me with love. To patram pushpam param toyom yomi bhaktiya prayachati tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnami prayatmanaha. Those who offer me a fruit, a flower, leaf, or water with love, I accept their offering very gladly. So this love is actually the purport of the Bhagavad Gita in one sense, and is what we're striving for. Every living entity has a relationship with Krishna. A relationship means there's some sort of love there. Real relationship. In the material world, relationship means a business transaction. One has a relationship with another person because some sort of service is rendered, just like people are friends in this world because whatever, they mutually agreed to take drugs together. They mutually agreed to go to some sports event. One person scratches the other person's back. And as soon as this back scratching business is stopped, then there's break of friendship, there's break of relationship, there's divorce, there's like that. This is the nature of the relationships within this world. But our relationship with Krishna is completely unconditional. It has nothing to do with the mundane sentiments of this world, in that Krishna always loves us, and actually we always love Krishna. That love for Krishna is dormant within everybody's heart. It just has to be reawakened. This process, Krishna consciousness, is not something new or is some sort of new process that's introduced. Rather, it's just rekindling and reawakening what's already there within the living entity's heart. It's waking it up. It's bringing inspiring oneself and bringing about that, kindling that flame within the heart, that original love for Krishna. That love for Krishna is there, but it's also cultivated in one sense. It's not exactly so easy to attain. It's a process. Krishna consciousness, it's although the end goal is love of God, there's a process to get there. And it's very scientifically laid out in these books, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. If you study the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives so many different ways for attaining him. And the highest is simply to engage in devotional service unreservedly and to perform whatever one does, simply act in this world simply for the sake of Krishna, simply for pleasing Krishna's senses. Of course, there's lower platforms than that, dovetailing one's whatever one may do. If one wants to do it, one can dovetail his actions in Krishna consciousness. But the highest thing is coming to this platform of simply serving Krishna unconditionally. And this is done in so many different ways. The practical process is given in that chanting 16 rounds daily, chanting on beads the Hare Krishna mantra, following the four regular principles, hearing regularly these literatures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimvatam Svakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridis Antista Bhadrani, Vidinoti Sarit Satam. It's stated in the second chapter of this book, the Srimad Bhagavatam, that for those who hear the Bhagavatam regularly, Krishna personally, from within his heart, he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment, and he situates, paraphrasing or extrapolating, he situates the living entity back in his constitutional position. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of it, Krishna tells the same thing, that those who study this divine conversation of mine, he worships me by his intelligence. So reading, hearing, chanting, and even honoring prasadam, taking foodstuffs, is all a way of acting on our relationship with Krishna. So, like I said, this process, this love is not exactly easy to obtain. It'll take some time, but it's definitely worth it. Anything takes time. Just like in the material world, if you want to learn anything, if you want to become good at anything, it takes a long time. Generally, at least I've read in one place, it takes 7 years to become expert in anything you do, whether it be painting, some sort of art, some sort of science, playing an instrument. It takes endeavor, and it's a practice. It's a dedicated practice. It's just like if you want to learn an instrument, you practice 1 day out of the week, and the rest of the week you completely forget about it. You won't learn anything very much. So similarly, too, if we think about God simply once on Sunday and just forget about him the rest of the week, then some progress is there. You're doing something, but you're not getting the full benefit. So similarly, too, by taking this Krishna consciousness and applying it in every aspect of our life, you see the practical effect. Actually, Srila Prabhupada wrote in the Krishna book that most of his students were coming from previously hippie backgrounds in the 1960s and were previously very dirty and unkempt, and most of them actually weren't coming from very learned or they weren't coming from such a well-educated background. But Srila Prabhupada writes there, but now that they have taken up the process of Krishna consciousness, they're appearing as if they've come straight from Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, with beads in their hands and on their necks, and dressed in saffron. So this process of Krishna consciousness is all attractive and it's all purifying. There's no sort of pre-qualification or prerequisite for the process of Krishna consciousness. There's nothing you have to gain anew, nor is there anything, materially speaking, you have to learn new. You just engage what you already have. And by doing so, gradually, one's innate Krishna consciousness will be revived. Then we can begin to feel, so I'm talking about how Krishna gives intelligence, gives inspiration within the heart. And so indirectly it may be there, but we can actually approach the platform of speaking with Krishna, of talking with Krishna, of seeing with Krishna. Otherwise, what's the point of Krishna consciousness? If we can't get there, then it just all remains theoretical. And it's a fact we can get there. It's assured in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita, and by our previous spiritual masters. By simply following, it's a very simple process. Staying in the association of devotees, chanting 16 rounds every single day, and following the 4 regs, our success is guaranteed. And you see the effects of those who have been following this process. It may not be day to day, but if you examine the character of one and the spiritual standing of one who's been following the process of Krishna consciousness, even for a year, you see a marked difference. Srila Prabhupada, he would say, I remember at the end of one class in 1968, he was encouraging his audience, if you just chant this Hare Krishna mantra, even for 1 week, if you try it, then you'll definitely see the effect. It's a scientific process. Pratyaksha prajakshava kamam dharmam. It's direct, the effects of Krishna consciousness as directly perceived in our lives. We simply have to follow the process. So I can't speak so long. I'm sorry, my voice is like really like dry. So I'll end my class there and open it for any comments or questions anybody may have at this point. Yes.
It's important to just follow and like proper, it's like don't artificially create a feeling of devotion. Don't try to feel. Don't try to feel devotion. This is like almost sadhana. Just do the service and the feeling will come. Like Prabhupada said, you dance and the ecstasy will come. So it's like, otherwise it becomes really weird. You like try to create a feeling in your heart, but it's like completely like, going through all your material desires and you don't have a proper conception of what is devotional service. You feel but you won't serve. So it's like really important to understand that point that you serve and the feelings will come over the years. It's not that we have to create the feeling. Some people want to feel, but it's just mental. So it's like, in the beginning, it's like, we feel the ecstasy of devotional service, but not that we try to create the feeling. Otherwise, it's material, because you're creating it, like, it's natural to the living entity. So it's a really important aspect to understand, because, other philosophies and other pseudo spiritual movements, they're like, just feel the love. No, we don't do that crap here. We worship Krishna, we serve Krishna, and it's just a part of it. You don't want to have to like even think about it. You don't have to like artificially feel, oh, maybe I'm trying to feel the love in my heart. No, that's not how. That's so bogus. Don't do that. Just stick to the service, and it will come. And you'll see that you don't have to like think about it. It just comes and you realize it, and you don't go tell everyone, oh, dude, I felt so much love in my heart. This is natural. It's just like it happens every day over the years, and it's not anytime you see someone who go like, I love Krishna so much. It's so you don't see that from our acharya. It's just like you see like Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the beginning. He's feeling so like low and like the scum of the earth. He's not, but he's just feeling like he's saying like that. I'm the lowest among human beings. I'm absolutely useless. How have I gotten this mercy? How can I get this mercy? So it's like, there's like this misconception within pseudo-spiritual circles and that you have to feel. But that's not the culture also. You just serve.
Yeah, it's a very natural thing. It's just like even in mundane relationships. Of course, that's perverted sometimes, but you see those relationships which actually have some sort of substance to them. It's based upon just like a wife is serving her husband for so many different years, and she just goes on serving. She doesn't think that like I love my husband so much, I like getting so engrossed in the relationship like that. And that aspect is coming more from sense enjoyment. Rather, it's just automatical because the service is there. Naturally, the love is there, and naturally, the appreciation is there, and naturally, there's satisfaction and happiness with the relationship. So similarly, too, in Krishna consciousness, it's the same thing. Naturally. The satisfaction and it comes about simply by acting, simply by trying to serve Krishna. It's automatic. It goes hand in hand. And you see, for those devotees who have been serving for like rendering devotional service for so many different years, the first thing you can note is that they're happy. Just as Guru Maharaj was saying in that one class, is that obviously they're happy. Otherwise, why would you be wasting your time doing it? You can do so many different things. But there's something there. But it's not that you have to squeeze something out of it. It's a lower platform, actually, trying to enjoy the process of Krishna consciousness. That's there, and the enjoyment is definitely there, but the main thing is just focusing. It's just like in mundane relationships between a husband and a wife. The wife is simply focusing. She's not thinking about how love this and that. She's thinking, how can I serve my husband? And because of that, the relationship is there. So it's the same thing with Krishna. When the service is there, so naturally Krishna becomes pleased, and naturally the relationship with Krishna is there. It's not something that's lovey-dovey or squished, wrung out or anything like that. So yeah.
It's like those devotees who've just been serving in the movement year after year. Whatever, there's like so many devotees here and there that just like really, most of them are unknown. and they've just been doing it over the years and years, and they won't like particularly say anything. But like you can understand that they have love for Krishna. It's like, you know, they're just without any, so many problems they've been through.
It's inherent in the dedication, actually.
And it's not. And then you've got those who are like showing the feeling and all this, and they won't clean a floor. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's the same thing as the sense, like, a show of devotion or a show of love. Um, Again, back to the point of mundane relationships. I've seen this. That I had one friend in college, and he was making a big point to me. I was somewhat taking him a Krishna consciousness. I was trying to like explain to him about whatever my own like misconception of Krishna consciousness. But basically, he was making this point that like, you know, he was in this relationship at the time, and he was like, you know, the relationship has to have that like fire in it, and like you have to like, you know, it has to like constantly go on. You have to make like a big show of it. And then like 2 months later, he like broke up with the girlfriend he was with. So you can see actually the so-called love in this platform is not actual affection. Whereas the relationship established on dedicated service, it's substantial actually. So yeah. Anything else? Comments, questions from anybody? Yes, Abadu.
I like the point you were making about the news you read and how there's like
Yeah.
being dedicated towards like sports.
Yeah, there's different like bars at the bottom, and the central one they've made in big text is like sports, and like supersedes all, even like the political ones, it like supersedes it all.
Yeah, and you're saying if you're like, you actually won't get satisfaction if you're doing these different activities.
Mhm.
And you had brought up, you know, Srila Vyasadeva. And if Vyasadeva wasn't getting happiness from like material life,
Yeah.
like why would we even try to do that, you know? He'd done so many different things, did so many different commentaries, but his guru came and chastised him and said, you missed the whole point.
Yeah, he was even speaking on Krishna. I mean, he authored had written the Bhagavad Gita. I think that Ganesh wrote it, but the Mahabharata was there. The Ramayana was there, which deals only with Lord Ram, but specifically because he hadn't talked about Krishna, he was unsatisfied. You know, what to speak of so many other different things in material life? How can there be satisfaction?
We have Mitravan Prabhu here on the call. Put in the mic.
One sec, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, we can hear you.
Mitravan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Pranam. So, you know, I was speaking about how,
The orange piece.
in dreams, so many people they discover and they understood like this hexagon or whatever you're talking about. How many scientists have dreams to like discover these things. But you know, I was thinking all those dreams are on the mundane platform. You know, the inspiration is mundane to perform some mundane activity. You know. But you know, I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada's dreams are completely transcendental. You know? And I found this really ecstatic quote of Srila Prabhupada where he says that there is to remain as in Vrindavan is sentiment, Srila Prabhupada. In New York, if I die, you will all have to entomb me on the roof. He joked grimly. There is no other room. If I die, as long as I die among you, you are all Vaikuntha men. And now this is Prabhupada's dream. Prabhupada said, I had a dream that Vaikuntha men came to me. They were all white men with shaven head. Your countrymen cannot believe how you have changed. And so Prabhupada was dreaming that all his disciples were coming to him. Prabhupada also said that he had a dream that when he was in India, he had dreams as to how he would be walking around in New York City spreading Krishna consciousness, you know. So Prabhupada's dreams are like so transcendental. And so I just wanted to, share that point, about divine inspiration.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And you see, anyway, that reminds me of one thing. It's relevant. It's a little more like esoteric, but I'll narrate it. So Tamal Krishna Goswami, he recounts that he also had one dream in India. He was having some sort of surgery done, and then Prabhupada himself wanted him to have the surgery. And so he went to Mumbai, I think, to have the surgery done. He was they had given him anesthesia, and he went under, and then he had one dream where I forget the details exactly, but he saw Srila Prabhupada speaking with the previous acharyas, and the previous acharyas were effectively asking Srila Prabhupada how was his mission, his preaching activities in this world going. And Srila Prabhupada said, the people here are very disqualified, but they have one very great qualification, and that they're very attached to my lotus feet. They have very great faith in me. And then at that moment, Tamal Krishna Goswami, or later he woke up, that was the end of the dream, and Srila Prabhupada, he actually came and he stopped the operation, actually, side note. And then Tamal Krishna Goswami, he asked Prabhupada about this dream. He said, Prabhupada, this is what I had this dream, what do you think of it? And actually, Prabhupada said, yes, this is actually the fact. So Krishna gives inspiration both spiritually and materially, even spiritually, even the spiritual master, just as one Gayatri is there, the spiritual master inspires his own disciple in Krishna consciousness. It's just like one scholar studying the Hare Krishna movement, he was noting that Srila Prabhupada, he was very unique in that his ability to completely inspire his disciples to do impossible things. It's just like, for example, Srila Prabhupada, he was able to have his disciples who had no experience in book publication, publish books, distribute books, who had no experience cooking, cook so many different dishes, who had no experience in management, manage so many temples. Somebody may have been, practically there are 20, 21, 22-year-olds running an international society all through the inspiration of Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada, he would encourage and inspire people based upon their own relationship with Krishna. And this scholar, he marked that Srila Prabhupada is able to inspire people in such a way. It's just like he told Brahmananda Prabhu, go get this Bhagavad Gita published to this Macmillan company, which is a huge international corporation, and they have a huge skyscraper in New York. Srila Prabhupada would, at the time, he was just crammed into some storefront in 26th Avenue. Who would have thought that Brahmananda Prabhu would have taken him seriously? But he actually did it. The inspiration was there. And so the scholar was noting that because Srila Prabhupada always kept it in a relationship with Krishna, he was able to give his disciples such firm inspiration. Because in other words, if Prabhupada had told his disciples, just believe in yourself and you can do it, or even if Srila Prabhupada would have said, just believe in me and I'll give you something, which is some sort of vague thing, but because he gave them something concrete, because as he said, you just have faith in Krishna, you have faith in the Supreme Personality of God, and then everything will be okay. Krishna will supply. Then that faith, that inspiration was there in his disciples. That's one thing I was reading recently. It reminded me of that. So, thank you. Yes?
Just along the lines of, Krishna's giving this inspiration, even like the mundane,
Yeah.
for their sciences, or you see in sports, they win the championship, God blesses, I'm so excited, But they think that's great, and even our parents and family and stuff like that look at what we're doing as not so great. They're like, oh wow, they're taking the wrong path, and why aren't they being inspired to go get a mundane job and do this mundane work and stuff like this? So, but it's just like completely flip-flopped in society that they're actually getting misled by the intelligence they've been given. But we can see that by being here, it's the most intelligent decision that we can make in this life. So this thing is interesting. It's you could pretty much be doing anything, and your parents would be more satisfied than you being here.
Yeah.
They would prefer you to be sleeping under the bridge over there, trying your best at life instead of being here. So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, generally, some parents are better. Just like a few Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they saw like the reformation of their former sons. And then, we were mainly among the hippie generation, and they saw they gave up, whether they become celibate, they're giving up drugs, whatever. They're dedicating themselves to something. So both things are there, but generally, that's how it goes, yeah. So, you have something, Degrees? You want to make some point? You raised your hand earlier.
Yeah, just a kind of funny side point. Francis Crick, who, envisioned the double helix structure of DNA, he was actually on acid when he did that.
Really?
And
Still the inspiration is coming.
It's not even like the real it's not how an atom looks. It's
Uh-huh.
just like, yeah, it's like a mental speculation, like how the electrons and
Yeah, at the time I always thought it was the real thing. They use the image actually.
they do.
But
Everybody knows.
it's like the image associated with the science, although it's a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have something else I do?
Yeah, and just we have some extra time, so just another anecdote I heard about the Christian Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm.
This was on a morning walk, and we were walking up. Someone told me this happened in Atlanta, but they were walking with Srila Prabhupada, and he had stopped all the devotees, and he was pointing at the skyline, and she had traced the skyline with his cane. He said, "Oh, you know, all day that someday this is all going to fall." And he asked the devotees, "You know why?" He said, "Prabhupada said this is all temporary." And the devotees were like, "I don't know, Prabhupada, like, you know, three modes of material nature." And no one knew what to say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, "Because they can't grow their own food." Prabhupada said, "Yes."
Mm-hmm. That was in Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Melbourne, yeah. I was taking a morning walk in Melbourne. So yeah, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. It's very essential. What did you guys say?
Yeah, I know this is like on topic of our conflict with class, but like how can we be sure that our devotee relationships are, you know, actually centered around Krishna and not around anything else?
Actually centered around Krishna and not our mundane feelings. So, different ways to see it. Generally, you have to see what the what the activities are, and whatever how one engages, like how one deals with each other. Is it in like a respectful Vaishnava manner? Are the topics of discussion in relation with Krishna, like that? Or is one, and even if one is like joking or whatever, I mean, jokes can be there, obviously, and there in any sort of relationship, there's informality, but you have to look at the substance of the relationship. There's like some people, you know, they in other words, the main substance of the relationship is that I'm a devotee of Krishna, you're a devotee of Krishna, and then on that basis we come together and we serve Krishna. And there may be different things to the side like that, you know, it's different topics of discussion and like that. It's so many different different varieties of, like, you know, whatever is the recreation like that. There's scope and devotional service for that, but the main thing is keeping Krishna in the center. If you could specify more, I could give a more specific answer, but it's kind of like a generic. Is that okay? Okay. One thing is always remembering others to be devotees of Krishna is like a big help, and whatever one may be doing, because a lot of misdealings in devotee relationships, it comes from forgetfulness of this person as a devotee of Krishna, as Krishna's property, whether it be due to just gross offenses, or even if it's, you know, whatever, just horseplay, as Srila Prabhupada said in 1966, is due to, if that Vaishnava conception is there, then, you know, there will be proper like dealings and proper thought, at least from my own realization, my own experience. So, anything else from the Mataji side? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Prabhupada ki.